Hello, hello, welcome back. I am Day 9, doing a little cast in action for the After Hours Gaming League. Because it's time to do Microsoft versus Zynga game number 3. And unfortunately for the folks over at Zynga who make those Facebook games that you know and love, Zynga's down 0-2 right now, and they're sending out NATO, one of their star Terrans, who has been performing quite well in this league thus far. So if Microsoft can win this game, they will close the series out 3-0. Thank you, NATO. Hearts right back to you. If they can close the series out 3-0, that means that they will not only gain plenty of points for the win, but also be one of the only undefeated teams right now. They are currently 2-0, one of two teams 2-0 right now. Meanwhile, Fredo, oh, that's right, his name is Fredo. I'm pretty sure it's Fredo. Fredo is the Zynga Zerg per usual. Going to be representing everything that is insectoid and awesome. So we do see the map is Shattered Temple. We see NATO spawning here at the left position, sending out that Overlord Scout. Already look at the hook. Oh, look at his timing. I bet you money, because I am a gambling man. I bet you one imaginary esports dollar that this is going to spot the Overlord and still be in time to build a barracks. Let's see. Let's see if I can win the esports dollar, you guys. Here it comes. Victory. Victory. Fortunately, esports dollars can be redeemed for high fives at anyone else who also watches esports. In the meanwhile, Fredo down in the southern position has done nothing yet, which likely entails an early expand. We see that first drone poking up, and oh, this is so annoying, starting to work away at that barracks. Though a wall off is good, keep in mind that NATO's going to have to bring that worker quite a long ways to begin working down the drone of the Zynga Zerg. And oh my gosh, he's gone nuts! He's committing to trying to kill everything off at the front. In the meantime, it looks like, oh, more worker battling action going on all about the screen. Oh, the Zynga Zerg only has 10 hit points left. He's going to do a check, and he will see the fast gas. So in the meantime, looks like NATO lost a little bit of focus on this one SCV and will let that hatch get planted. We see Fredo planting down his wonderful Wubula spawning pool that is so very, very cool. Meanwhile, the question for NATO is, what is he going to do? If for some reason this was the original version of Lost Temple, he could likely be going for a Thor drop. But because NATO is not someone who skipped out on 8 months of playing, he knows that it's Shattered Temple, which the only really gas-focused thing you can exploit is this big space Hellion play. Very potent on this map, given that wide-open entrance. Hellion's actually very effective on virtually any map. Fredo, the friendly Zynga Zerg, now planting down an extractor. NATO, the Microsoft Terran, scouts all of it, nothing out of the ordinary. Now we have the first Marine popping out. We have enough to be able to build a factory. Going down slightly ever so late, NATO. I'm disciplining him like he can do anything about it, right? This game's already been played. But still, NATO, that's a little bit late there, NATO. But the important thing to note is that he can still get away with doing some good control damage with something like Hellions. The main reason Hellions are effective is not the speed, but it's the amount that you get out early on. You can do a lot of containment damage in that fashion. It will hurt him a little bit, though, if he's going for a Banshee pressure, which is very effective due to the speed that the Banshee comes out. Any minor delay means one additional Queen can be popping out. And NATO going for the early second refinery. The refinery is the biggest indicator of what strategy your opponent will be doing. It seems to be that it's going to be some kind of tech-focused thing. Would not be surprised to see a starport go down. Whoa! NATO's going double factory. We don't see this very much on one base. Meanwhile, Fredo is getting his Zergling speed up, but if he is up against a large Blue Flame Hellion army, that could be big danger town for him. One Hellion is popping out. We see the Marine set now moving out to scout for any sort of Zerglings, and whoopsie daisies, Fredo will lose his single Zergling. And NATO versus Fredo. It took me until the 5-minute and 33-second mark to realize that those names rhyme. Fredo and NATO are going to go at it, and right now we do see NATO moving out to the center, is going to pick off that Zergling that's by the Zelnaga Watchtower. Did take a little bit of damage on the Hellion, and Fredo's responding appropriately by immediately planting down another Spine Crawler. I don't think, though, that this extra Spine Crawler is very necessary. He could actually take this Spine Crawler and burrow it back and keep this one at the front. You don't need a lot of Spine Crawlers versus Hellions. You just need many well-placed Spine Crawlers. And NATO Doing a very effective technique against spine crawlers, building a bunch of tanks, because tanks shoot much farther than the spine crawlers. And note that NATO did this little push and pulled right back. That's an excellent way to bait your opponent into making these additional spine crawlers. Very nice techniques thus far. And what do we see out of Fredo, the Zynga Zerg? He has not made any extra tech. He's only mined just enough to get the Zergling speed upgrade up. And there the spine crawler is down right now. And there my chair is squeaking. Allow me to sit back up and continue casting the game. We do see that there is an evolution chamber going down. Ordinarily a great play, easily allows you to deal with those banshees because you can end up building the spore crawlers, easily lets you get that fast +1 upgrade. But what we're seeing from NATO is that he's hiding his tanks. A very effective military strategy, hide the tank. And it looks like another barracks going down by NATO. You can support a lot of units on one base, and once NATO ends up finishing the siege tech, the amount of gas he gets means he can barely support 2 factories worth of tanks. It's going to be a big one base play, and Fredo, I think, is actually doing a reasonable response. He's getting extra spore crawlers up. He's wondering, why have I not seen anything? I've only seen a couple Marines and a Hellion, and he's starting to get suspicious. Oh, Fredo needs to be careful. He only loses 2 Zerglings. That's good thus far. As we see in the units lost tab, it's about even, and Fredo finally beginning to mine more gas now. Has not mined any at the expansion, still getting himself up a good swello minerals. And now NATO continuing to build himself some extra tanks. But Fredo sees everything. NATO revealed. NATO effectively naked strategy-wise. And now moving out to the center of the map. Oh my gosh, 4 siege tanks out right now. That's big number at this phase of the game. We see the Baneling nest going down, but this is a rough spot. Uh-oh. If you get enough Banelings out, yes, you can kill the Marines, but tanks are extremely potent against those Banelings. And we see the Zergling force trying to rush forward. Oh, I don't think this is a good engagement for Fredo, but he will be able to surround all the Marines, and the more Marines he kills off, the more this push needs to be delayed. We see a lot of SCVs moving out, but NATO knows the Marines are the big support unit. This is a very fragile time to be pushing, as we see 28 Zerglings are now en route right now. Baneling nest almost complete. Lair nearing completion as well. More Hellions coming out, and there's the Blue Flame upgrade. Wow, NATO really pressuring. We also see the Armory going down. Could have some Thors in mind. Likely for a push, but honestly, just because he's thinking this is a while to make a push, Mutalisk could come out, and we do see Fredo moving forward. He's taking out the tanks, and with a low Marine count, the tanks can't quite kill off the Zerglings quickly enough, but oh, all these SCVs end up taking the bulk of the damage, and Fredo's tank force is greatly reduced. We see a pack of Banelings morphing up on the high ground, but look at NATO with this incredible placement. He's going to be slithering tanks along this ridge on the right side. And going to be continuing to slowly advance forward. He has his SCVs continuing to add on a little bit of repair action. We don't see anything done with this armory yet. Hellions are starting to make their way forward. And the layer's done, so we could begin seeing some Baneling speed in a moment here, but the push at the front is really the main reason for concern for NATO. More Zerglings getting produced. If Fredo positions this properly, it's going to be in good shape. But oh, NATO's starting to pull some stuff off the front lines. NATO getting head-butted by the spine crawlers. Now I see the siege tanks beginning to move forward. There they are, doing good damage to the front, but here comes the Zergling Baneling attack, and oh, the Blue Flame Hellions are arriving in time, but the Blue Flame is not quite finished. Oh, Banelings detonate, annihilating almost everything except this one back siege tank. Look at that, 21 kills, Commander Siege Tank and Sergeant Siege Tank holding down the front lines, and it looks like Fredo's just going to continue to go for it. Just rallying to the front lines. Blue Flame Hellion trying to be microed about. This back siege tank is just doing worlds of hurt. Now killing off one of his own Marines. Commander Siege Tank has gone nuts. But Fredo, though he has held this off, the one mistake for Fredo is the fact that we have seen no tech from this layer. He's managed to keep himself alive, but for how long? He's bought himself a good bit of time, and we see a big mech force incoming from NATO. We see 2 factories getting constructed. We see 1 Thor out already. He's Mutalisk proof, although no Mutalisks are coming right now. Fredo looks like he's gearing up to just do a straight counterattack. Fredo is building an extra macro hatchery in his main. We do see NATO with the well-positioned siege tank taking out Zerglings one at a time from up top. Now getting up to 7 kills, 9 doing big damage, but It looks like Fredo still has managed to work his way around, so he's going to be able to take down that natural expansion. The Thor is coming down the cliff, and with the Blue Flame Hellion there to reinforce, these Zerglings are going to be dying mighty fast. Though the command center is getting surprisingly low on health, but with that huge fleet of SCVs there to repair, NATO's going to go back in mine. More Zerglings try to stream in, trying to get some vulnerability. They find one Marine, which NATO's tank promptly kills with splash damage, and more Zerglings are out right now for Fredo. Looks like he may have overproduced. We still see no geysers at this expansion. This could be a bit of a problem. No upgrades yet. Continuing to spread creep throughout his own main. Very important to have creep extended everywhere. Players like Dark Force just immaculate with their creep spread. And now NATO finally getting his natural expansion up. There's the +1 getting started, and you see the twitchy, tweaky dancies going on by the Baneling nest. It looks like Artosis when he's excited. There is the centrifugal hook upgrade coming as well. We see Fredo does have control over the center watchtower. The meching Terran player is a little bit in the dark, but that's not a big deal. And right now, Fredo does have some time for some map control. You should exploit this by taking another expansion. He's building a Roach Warren right now that will allow him to deal with the Thors a little bit better. And oh, the Zerglings are trying to sneak in again. Oh, I don't know if I like this. Look at him getting lined up. Oh, he lined him up, and the siege tanks and Hellions made short work of him. And now, for the first time this game, NATO is in a big lead. Fredo has lost 192 units. I didn't even know that was possible. And right now, if we look at the army supply tabs, we see that NATO is far ahead. Zer has some catching up to do, which he can do if he expands and starts building a lot of drones, but it looks like Fredo is committed to doing a lot of damage very early. Now, this is not going to go well if Fredo decides to barrel down the front door. But if he tries to wait for the Terran to come out, hope that the Terran comes out a little early, he could annihilate the Terran force without much problem. We see the vehicle plating also coming up for NATO. And looking around, NATO doesn't quite have the tank count he'll need to push out. But he has a huge amount of Hellions. Looks like he's moving forward with these front 8. And Fredo now taking down his gold expansion. We see the +1's almost done. The Baneling's up waiting on the high ground. Has to be very careful if these Hellions catch him off guard. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, the Hellion's moving up, and the Zergling's completely vulnerable. They're back in a corner, and look at him rush up to try to surround. The Zerglings try to do damage, but NATO does have the Blue Flame upgrade. Oh. Oh, it's a massacre. NATO in amazing position. Looks like he is rapidly en route to give that third win to Microsoft in this game and give them their third win of the season. Now we see NATO making more tanks, making more Hellions. The Thor's very defensive, used to deal with those Mutalisks, but the tanks are what we know Terran's really been waiting for. And there's the scan. Sees that the infestation pit has just now completed, so if he moves out now, no risk in the slightest for any infestors. And wow, that looks like exactly what NATO's doing. He's leaving this Commander Siege Tank on the high ground. Never mind, I am absolutely 100% wrong. Commander Siege Tank leading the charge from way behind. And here is the giant fleet of units, the Hellions, with their ice skates on, moving backwards in synchronized swimming fashion. There's the rescan. NATO continuing to advance. And there's a good amount of roaches from Fredo, but he doesn't have the speed upgrade quite yet. Siege going up for NATO. Has to be careful, though. There's a lot of creep tumors out on the field right now. NATO doing some amazing tank spreading. And here's the huge push from Fredo. Advancing forward, Banelings rolling up. A lot of these mech units are quite clustered, and the Banelings hit huge, but it looks like NATO just had a few too many units. And SCVs are still alive to repair. And oh, the 20 hit point Thor. NATO continuing to move forward, scanning to see what is up on the high ground, but we see NATO moving up the main with the Blue Flame Hellions. There's nothing here to defend except 2 Queens. The Zerglings hatch just in time, it seems, but will it be enough? We see the Zerglings trying to sweep around, and there's the surround that Fredo needed. He is going to completely nullify this Blue Flame Hellion attack, but Fredo is also going to be not mining from his natural expansion. A huge force of tank Hellion from NATO now moving out. We see that that +1 upgrade is done now, and NATO is rapidly approaching the front gates. Fredo has a good number of Banelings at the back right. There's NATO continuing to advance forward. The Banelings are going to be very good at keeping the SCV numbers low. But man, it's going to be rough with that many siege tanks about to come to the front. There's a scan by NATO picking off the creep tumor from the left that will stop the creep spread of the Zerg. And NATO again exploiting this point right here at the back. Is our commander siege tank alive? He died in vain. And the Banelings roll up. Don't manage to kill much of anything. And Fredo is on the ropes. Microsoft may have done a complete sweep 3-0. And they do. Microsoft has managed to take the win 3-0. That brings them to 3-0 in the tournament thus far. So congrats to Microsoft for being yet undefeated, losing almost no games on their way here. Hope to see you for more Week 3 action at AfterHoursGaming.tv. For now, I'm Day 9. I'm out.